We are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the weekly live stream show of Co-Design Work with Wonder. My name is Angela Dang, your co-designer intern host for this whole summer of Intern Takeover. And this week, we have the privilege to have Andrew on our live stream show. He is the Build a Skateboard Deep Dive lead. So I'm just going to bring him on here, and we're going to learn all about Build a Skateboard Deep Dive. Hello, Andrew. Hey.
Hey, how are you, Angela? Thank you
I
for
am
having me on.
good.
This
Yes.
is exciting and fun. Thank you.
Yes. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing great today. How are you doing today?
Great. I am doing great. I love your little background thing going on. Looks very
Yeah,
handy.
well, I'm in my classroom actually. So I'm also not just a deep dive lead. I'm also an educator, and I teach students throughout the year. And the end of the year was a rush to the finish. We're still cleaning up and putting things back together. So that's what's going on behind me here.
Very cool. Yes. So I know that a lot of us co-designer interns got a skateboard for us, not just for the interns in your deep dive. So one day I just took a sneak peek inside the box, and then I saw like layers and layers of wood skateboard. I was really puzzled. I was like, how do you put this together? And I don't know, I was just kind of confused. So Build a Skateboard, it always has this mystery to me. So today I can't wait to ask you tons of questions and find out how to, how interns can learn from building a skateboard and, all the good stuff that's in this deep dive. So can I jump into my first question?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
Yes, let's do that, Andrew. Okay, so I'm curious. I'm really curious. So what does a day in the Build a Skateboard deep dive look like? I know that we already kicked off our deep dive sessions, so I'm curious what you did for your first week.
Okay. Well, I mean, as an educator, the things that we plan, there's always like deeper layers to why we do these things and what's going on. And the Build a Skateboard is kind of like this, excuse me, it's kind of like this surface level description of really what we're doing. Like, yes, we're doing something. Yes, we're building something. But as with any kind of experience, we work together, collaborate together. Eventually, we stop looking at the thing and we look up at each other and realize that we're having shared experience. And there's, deeper connections and understandings that are emerging from this shared experience through the work itself, through with one another, with ourselves, all those things. So the Build a Skateboard deep dive in a day typically looks like, it looks almost like a product development thing. We're really trying to think about what's the experience that the end user is having by going through this process. As a project-based learning teacher, I've designed projects over the last 15, 16 years for students. And the first thing I think about is not what's the shiny thing we're going to build in the end. That's kind of like the gimmick to get people into it and doing it. But really, what's like the growth and development and the individual story from the experience that we can share in the end of this, and how powerful can that be? How can we elevate individuals within this learning community? And that's kind of the thing that I'm looking at. So because I haven't built a skateboard before, it was just something that was interesting. And I think there's an initial engagement by listening to it, like what you mentioned. Oh, I want to build a skateboard. There's all these layers. What's going on here? Yeah, it's this deconstructed thing that we all know. We've all seen skateboards, right? So to break it down and kind of get into the nitty gritty of it, there's a lot of different components about how, the deconstruction of something that we know so well, the ability to kind of like put our stake in the design process of it, and then also unpacking this experience that we're having along the way. And that's kind of what the daily kind of, that's the bigger picture, but on a little micro scale in a day, that's kind of what it looks like. What did we do? How did we feel about it? What was the emotional engagement? What are some thoughts now that we're a creative design team together, and not just like, you're not students, I'm not a teacher. We're in a professional group together. How can we work together and use our collective skills to reimagine what's happening here, and what the experience is that's working for us, what's not working for us, and how we might consider redesigning the way that we facilitate this experience with others. So that's kind of the overall goal. And every day we revisit those different angles to kind of look at what we're doing, to try to, so by the end, when it comes time to reevaluate what we're doing, how we might be able to make changes, we have this documentation and process that's been laid out that we're looking at.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I feel like this deep dive is the most special one and the most unique one to me, because I feel like it's the most hands-on experience, because you actually have to, get get like work with your hands and actually like put things together. I mean, other ones are hands-on too, but it's not like as literally hands-on as this one. So I feel like it's when you collaborate in such an environment, you have to be really diligent about like and careful about how you're working with your hands. I feel like you guys can really form a good bond and learn on a deeper level. So
Yeah, you're making decisions with your hands, and there's
I
no going
know.
back. It's once you make the decision and do it, it's kind of there's this tangible kind of experience that comes with this. Uh, it's not abstract. We're not, you're working with the thing and you're developing it. And I say I would go back to this idea that, um, as a teacher and being embedded in the school system, I think about where the school kind of fits into the learning process. I think it's in a misplaced way. That's just my sense of things. And I feel like when you have experience, something leaves an imprint. It's visceral. You got the emotional, the cognitive, like the physical, like imprint from doing it. So your experience, and I'm saying you, not you specifically.
Oh yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
you do it, Angela, but but your experience, and then you can use kind of school to unpack the experience and develop a deeper understanding of it, especially within like subject lens and things like that. So the idea is that you're working on something. When they came in on the first day, I was like, let's start building right away. Let's get to know each other and build. And they were a little taken back, like, are we going to learn about stuff? And I was like, no, let's build and then we'll learn, because that puts them in the seat of I think honoring their experience and bringing that into the fold. So they're going to, when we go to debrief, what was significant to you in this experience? I asked them, and what are the things that stand out? So I'm not pigeonholing it by saying you're going to do this thing and this is the stuff that matters. Really, I'm asking what matters to you and how can we leverage the collective things that were significant in this experience to try to make this thing better for all. And so getting your hands on right away is important for me. Working with your hands, I think, is an interesting way to develop an intimate understanding or knowledge of the thing that you're working with.
Yeah, and I find it really interesting that you said it's not like the traditional school way of like teaching. So you learn first and you build. Yeah, I think in the real workplace, it's all about hands-on. It's not just like learning first. I feel like you really have to work instead of just like constantly just absorbing information, but rather being interactive and engaging.
It's quite different, I think, from the school experience.
Yeah.
And everyone's school different experience is different depending on the school and whatever they approach it with. But for the most part, my general sense of school is you're told what to do, how to do it, what's valuable, and you got to converge to that thing that's valuable, rather than really thinking about, all right, I'm in a space now. When I show up for this build a skateboard design session with them, or experience this deep dive, I tell them, like, I don't know how well this thing is. I don't know how it's going to work. I don't know where we're going to go with it. And I need all of you to help me with this process. And I'm going to model and, facilitate, different design kind of proceedings and, adult learning habits and behaviors and professional kind of approaches to things. But like once they get that opportunity to do something and they come to that arena, they all have a stake in the outcome, because I'm asking them, how can we make this better? What do you think? Let's try that. Let's do it. And then the outcomes, they own in a way. It's not owned by me. It's not owned by anyone. It's owned by like this collective learning community, this team. So that's important for me.
Yes, I know. That's very profound. Okay. So I think it's time to move on to our next question. So I know that you are an educator and you love to inspire young people and, lead the youth to a better future, like inspire our generation. So what inspires you to work with us young people?
For me, I think it's the most important work. It feels like something that's purpose driven rather than just like a career things, or just like a job, and I can unpack that a little bit. When I look at educating or participating in human development for young people, for me, it's almost like you're helping create society, and it's all relationship based, and I think we trivialize it, and we, for lack of a better word, I think we bastardize it. We add a bunch of stuff to the equation and try to make it seem like it's less valuable than what learning really is. And so this is what I'm thinking when I get into it. the education system pretty much has been pumping out a certain cut of individual. And those types of people succeed in the world. They rise up, they become head of industries. They sit at the table that makes decisions, not just about industry, but about the issues that the world faces, right? And, over time, when that goes on, you end up getting like the same person sitting at that table, and those are the solutions that you get to try to like make change in the world. The world faces a lot of real issues that you need a very dynamic and broad range of solutions and creative solutions for. So I think if you tweak a little bit about human development in the education in the early stages of someone's learning when they're young, and you kind of create a space that values who they are as individuals, rather than trying to have them converge towards this one slice that works in education, then you get a much more diverse and untapped mindset of people sitting at a table and bringing their solutions to the fold for what we have to do to, face the challenges that the world faces. And so I think if you do that, you're going to have this windfall of creative and innovative minds that are coming into the fold that typically have been left out of it before. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's an inspiring thing. And I'm not just sitting here preaching about it. Like, I do things sometimes with students and I see how they emerge within a classroom, mostly because I've gotten out of the way and I've pulled away the barriers from that have existed. And so when that happens, it's not just I'm just talking about it or I'm just making a case for it. Like, I'm shifted because as a person, I've seen it and I can't unsee it anymore. And so I think my goal as an educator right now is to try to create the conditions that allow people to feel safe and feel compelled and engaged to emerge as themselves, to participate in communities of practice that exist in the real world, and then try to get out of the way and remove as many obstacles to let them go as far as they can, to run as far as they can with that. And I know in the end of that, it's a process-driven thing. At the end of that, they're going to have amazing stuff to show. So that's what kind of drives me as an educator.
Yeah, that is incredible, because my life goal is to make a difference in this world, and especially like a positive difference. So you're doing like the kind of work that I want to do. So yeah, that's just incredible. That you're just making a difference, and yeah, I admire that very much. Thank you.
It's fulfilling for sure.
Yeah. And going off of that, I know that you said a lot of students grew. You witnessed a lot of students grew in their journey as learners. So so have you been inspired by any students that you've worked with? What qualities did you learn from them? Maybe how, I know you inspire people, but how have they inspired you?
I think a good learning experience doesn't just like allow the students to transform, that it creates a new learning environment that everyone kind of, transforms to. It's transformative for both the educator and the student. And it kind of like elevates everyone to the same place where we're all learning together. Decentralizes kind of like the traditional place. So for me, there's some students that have just shifted my way of thinking. Like, there's been pivotal moments, and I'll give one example. I can give an anecdotal kind of like situation here. There's a student that I had, and he was an English language learner. He was coming to America. English was a second language, and he struggled with communicating and understanding what was being communicated to him. And teachers, when you get students in your class, you get let known, like, this student struggles here, they have, here. And the narrative about the student was that maybe he doesn't care that much. And maybe that was the narrative that, he ended up, absorbing, because, I think students are smarter than we think. They absorb the messaging that's coming to them, whether explicit or implicit. And, he came into my class, was really shy, sat in the back, didn't really engage that much. And you could tell that there was damage there. And, he was interested in photography. I saw him one time holding a camera. And I was doing astrophotography at the time, as just a side hobby, and some of the things I did with some students in a club. And I was like, hey, and he started pointing the picture. I was like, you want to do that? You interested in that? And he's like, yeah, I'd like to try that. And I was like, hey, here's a camera, play around with it, come back. We're going to go out in a week, and I'm going to let you do whatever you want to do. And so we took him out for a week. We went out to this place out east, where it's a little darker skies. And I said, go ahead. He grabbed the telescope, put on the camera, started taking pictures, captured all the pictures. We came back to the school the next day. He got the SD card and went on his computer, downloaded all the images, went online. And I realized he was teaching himself all the digital tools. Because I didn't know, how did you know how to use the telescope? How did you know how to use the camera? He was teaching himself, because the resources and information are out there in today's world. You know, you don't need someone to teach you these little nuts and bolts of things. Kids can get it from online, and they can get it from the personalities they want to hear it from. So, you know, and so he learned it. He taught himself the digital tools and came back with a processed picture of that image. And it was the best astrophotography image that I've ever seen from any of my students. And he shifted from this shy kind of just like, you know, not wanting to engage student to having these like big bright eyes. And because all the kids in the class saw it too. And they're like, wow, how did you get that? How did you, you know, do that picture? And, you know, he just had this confidence about him. And, you know, and that developed a relationship. He came back years later and he's in college now. And he's like, you know, he's doing really well. If I think I might even have that picture up if you want me to share it.
No,
I can find
please.
it.
Oh my God. Yes.
Sure.
That's
Let me
really
just dive into my, let's see if I can find that
yeah.
real quick. Here it is. Okay. Let me just,
Okay. Let's see it. Oh my God.
all right. So sorry, I'm not using this platform too much. Let me share.
Okay.
So here's, all right. So I'm on my screen here. So let me, so, oh, this is the picture he took. Here it is.
Oh my God.
So he took a picture of the
He
Horsehead
took that?
Nebula here and this Fire Nebula. I don't know all the names of all these things. And he processed it and put this out. And this was it, you know. And it's a beautiful image because, you know, aesthetically and just like everything that we see about it, of course, it's impactful. But I know the experience and the story of the individual behind it. And, you know, I got him to write about that. And he wrote it in Spanish. And there's a piece of this somewhere where it has the Spanish writing on the side, and it's like framed and put up in my class. And it just talks about like who he is, where he came from, and how he had this opportunity and how much it meant to him. And for me, that's an incredibly powerful thing for me. Like, how can I not be shifted as an educator once experiencing that? You know, to not just think about how we compartmentalize and kind of like label kids before they come into a class, but really just giving them an opportunity to show what they can do. And, you know, removing all the obstacles for them, the obstacles of language, the obstacles of, you know, access to curriculum and maybe something that they're not so interested in. And, you know, so that he kind of showed me that. And that was one student. You know, there's been many examples of similar stories that have shifted how I've looked at, you know, human development and young minds and young people along the way. So that was one thing there. And I should share, like, he stood up actually with it framed in front of the class, and everyone was like, and normally this kid who was so just like his confidence was so low, and he thought that he wasn't smart because that was the messaging that was coming to him, that he couldn't access the curriculum. And they're like, how did you do that? Can you teach me? He goes like, you know, what allows you to do that? And he holds it, points to it, and he goes, I don't know if I should say it, but he goes, chingon, you know, and which means like, you know, it's the ultimate expression of confidence, right? Like, so, I mean, and it was just an awesome experience, you know?
Yeah, that is very powerful because nowadays we have Google, we have all these search engines, but I know some people they just don't they don't even bother to how to use it, and they have to ask around for information. I think it's really incredible that he taught himself. He actually utilized the tools around him to help himself to learn. So
Well, that's one of the things I think about as an adult person. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in there, but
oh no, sorry, no, go ahead.
like the learning dynamics have changed quite dramatically over the last like 30 years, 20 years or so, right? And, you know, like information's everywhere. It's ubiquitous now. It's anywhere you can look, you can find out what you want to know, and there's videos about it, and there's different personalities that teach it in any language you want. You're going to find what you want to learn. So really, I think, you know, this antiquated model of education where we have this like stuff that we've cut out that we said we have to teach and you have to listen to me and sit in a box in a school, you know, outside, like we're going to take you from the outside world and then teach you about the outside world, which is weird, you know, and we're going to teach you these very specific pigeonholed things. And if you don't know that, then you're not intelligent, or you get labeled as you feel like, you know, so that to me, it's like, so the dynamics of learning today is like, you know, how do we learn as adults? We go out and we research, we find it out, we connect with communities of practice and people that are involved there. And we, you know, there's back and forth, and you go and you have an experience somewhere doing something and you learn it yourself. And then you get more feedback because, I mean, you could go online and just say, find a forum where people are doing this work and say, hey, I tried this thing. What do you think? And you're going to get feedback. And I mean, learning is much more open now. And the kids know this. They know it, you know, and we're trying to sell them this new model, like the old kind of antiquated model of education. And it's no wonder that most kids are disengaged in a classroom. You know, you kind of think about it.
Yeah. And
so
also
build a skateboard is a micro slice of, well, let's tackle this differently. Let's look at this.
Yeah, and I feel like in the traditional school system, failure is generally not accepted, but I feel like failure is so key to success. And I feel like your style of education, you're encouraging students to fail, which will eventually lead to success. And I think that is very important to good learning, good growth. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I mean, it comes down to how do you measure people, right?
hmm
Right, and it's weird. And assessment, right? There's this idea of summative assessment. There's no such thing as a summative assessment because you're always growing, right? And
yeah,
so, the and the idea of measuring people too, like who are we to kind of slice someone up and say they're worth this much, right? Like it's crazy. You never walk up to someone on the street and look them up and down and be like, ah, B, that's not going to fly. It's not going to
yeah,
work.
hmm
But with students, yeah, it's just part of the growth is taking a chance to try something. And if they're not doing it, if they're not then kind of debriefing it, what worked, what didn't work, what can we do better, what can we learn from, what do we need to bring into this equation so that we can do the next iteration better, then it's then then you're stuck kind of with this like cap. I can only get this far,
I
and
know.
it's hard because school has created this high stakes, you have to perform at the optimum level all the time kind of environment,
Oh, yes, I
and
can. Yes.
it's damaging. It's damaging the
That
kids,
is everything. Oh my God, I relate so much. Yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Thank you so much for speaking about like this thing because I used to let school define me so much, like my grades and how they measure students. I let that affected me a lot, but now I learned to, let go and realize my value is not here. It's
Mhm.
actually who I am as an individual, not a student. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I realize we're at the end of our time here. So last question, we'll wrap this up really quick. So what's a main takeaway you like the interns to end the internship with?
And ownership. That's an easy
Ownership.
question. It's ownership. I want them to own their experience and own their learning and look at the thing that they've made, their skateboard in the end, and know that like this was something that was a product of their decisions, their work, their efforts. And it doesn't just end there. It lives beyond that. What do you do with this thing now? So it's and I think that and you get an experience in a like flattened kind of power structure where there's no hierarchy. We're all together in a team and we need everyone and their individual skill sets, their signature presence on that team, what they bring to the table is valuable. It's not what I decide is valuable. It's their
Mhm.
part of it and they've had a stake in the outcome.
Yeah.
So that's all part of the ownership piece I think I want
Wow.
them
I
to do.
love that quick answer. That was so fast. It just flew right after I answered the question. I mean, I asked the question. So, wow. Thank you so much, Andrew. I learned so much about Build a Skateboard and your incentive of like, creating this whole thing. So, yeah,
Great.
thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you so much. It's great
Yes.
talking to you.
Yes.
Anytime.
And next week we have Meet Environmental Activism lead Brian. So Emily, our co-designer intern Emily, is going to lead that since I'll be gone next week. I'll be in Hawaii taking a vacay. So
Well, you guys are in for a good one there. Brian's a
yeah.
colleague of mine, a close friend. He's one of the most amazing human beings I have ever met. The guy inspires me every time I just hang out with him. He's awesome.
Yes.
So you guys
Yes.
are
You just inspired me on the spot. Thank you so much. Thank
great.
you, Andrew. Yes.
Cool.
So
Thank you,
that's
Angela.
all for this week's live stream. I hope you guys learned something. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week. Well, not me, but see you guys next week.
All
Thank
right.
you,
Take
Andrew.
care, everyone.